we're going to write a new application together that uses the if-else structure and also uses some of the numerical input stuff that we've been working on. So let's make a new Java application. This one I'm going to call point of sale. And the idea here is that, and no main class, we're going to write an application that will calculate the price per item and the total cost for that number of items in a volume discount situation where the more a customer buys, the more items they buy, the cost per item, the less the cost per item will be. So we'll call this, the class will be volume discount, and the package is going to be, make it point of sale in lowercase letters again. So we'll finish that. And you can see we've moved into the graphical mode for designing our user interface. And I'm going to put in a few items here. So there's a label and another one just underneath it with a text field to get input from the user. There. And we'll put a button underneath that to activate stuff. And then last we'll have two labels. You know what, maybe we'll just do one label. We'll put those two things together in a single label. Okay, so the first label, let's rename it to instruction label, or instructions label, maybe it would be better. So this label is going to be, we'll hold the instructions that we give to the user. This one is going to be called the input field label, and it will go next to the input field itself. This is the calculate button, and the last thing is going to be the lowercase r results button. Okay, now let's go to each of these items. The instructions label here, we're going to give the instructions to the user. Enter the number of items and click calculate. Here, this word will be items. This one here, the JText field, which was called input field, we don't want to keep this text in here, this default text. So F2 and then delete that text. Now that's going to resize this to be very small. Let's make it very large again. This J button here, the calculate button, we want to put the word calculate on it. And this J label, which I will stretch out, is we want the initial text to be just blank. And then let's stretch it out vertically here a little bit too. And the whole frame then we can shrink up to just fit kind of nicely here. Let's do that. Okay, so everything fits inside of our frame. Okay, so we're about 3 minutes in, and so far we've got our user interface pretty well done. I want to maybe move over this this button closer to the middle, and then if I resize it a little bit, it should center it for me. Okay, right there looks pretty good. Okay, now everything's going to happen in this program when I actually click the calculate button. What it will do is grab the number out of here, perform some calculations, and print out the result down here. And again, the more items, the higher this number is, the cost per item drops, and the total price is calculated. So I'm right-clicking on the calculate button because that's where the event will occur, the action performed event. And here's the code right here. So what are the steps to follow? We're going to get the text input value. We're going to convert it to an int, and if that's successful, then we're going to print the result. Those are our steps. And let me just put another space in there. Okay. So getting the text input value is not so hard, but converting it to an int is a little bit harder. So we're going to do a few steps here to make this happen carefully so that the user can't make a mistake and crash the program. So we need an integer, and the integer is going to be called num items for number of items, and I'm going to declare it initially to be 0. We need a string to hold our results. So that's going to be maybe result. which I'm going to start off with the empty string. It's a good idea to initialize all of your variables. And we need one more thing to help format our currency, because these are dollar values. We need a decimal format object, which I'll call df, and it will be a new decimal format object. And to declare it, I want currency values, so I want 0.00 to be the style of number that I'm going to get. The 0 at the beginning will make sure that even if the value is less than 1, I'll still have a 0 before the decimal place. And the 2 zeros here means that I will get 2 decimal points, 2 places after the decimal point, again, even if they're zeros. So if the value is $1.50, it will say 1.50. This second 0 makes sure that it doesn't say 1.5. Okay, so the function, the method that we want to use to get our value from the input field is input field dot get text. Now that gets us a string, so we're going to wrap that up into integer dot parseInt. I'm sorry, I should have maybe not done it in this order. Integer dot parseInt, that input field's the text that comes from that input field, and we want to stick that into num items. Num items equals integer.parseInt. Okay, so I kind of wrote that backwards, but into this variable we're going to parse an integer, which we get the text from our input field to do. But that can throw an exception, a number format exception. So we're going to try to do that, and then if we're unsuccessful, we're going to throw an exception. And then when that exception is thrown, we're going to catch it. So catch, and the exception type is number format exception. You can just put the word exception there with a capital E, and it'll catch any kind of exception that occurs. But let's be pretty specific here. That's a good practice. And if that occurs, what we want to do is let the user know. And that's our, I'm sorry, I called it a button. I should have called it a label. Let's go back to our design mode for a second. I was just about to use that and it's got the wrong name. Okay, now we'll go back to our source area here. And we were working in the calculate buttons area here, right? Go to the source for that. Is up here. There we are. Okay, so apologies for that. I want to use that results label, and it was badly named. So results label dot set text to that's not a valid number of items. Exclamation point to be really serious. Okay, so that's what will happen if the user makes a mistake. But if they don't make a mistake, the rest of this try block gets to execute. So let's figure out what we want to put into our result. So the result now depends on the number of items, and we're going to put in some groups here. So if the number of items num items is less than 100, so like between 0 and 99, then we want the value to be $2 per item. So the result equals the cost per item is $2. I'm going to put a new line. Maybe I better not. We'll just do it in all in one line. The total cost is, I'm going to put a $sign. There's my last quotation mark, and I'm going to put a semicolon, and we're going to just build more onto this result string. Okay, and to do that, I'm going to do another line here, result equals result plus, and I want to do df.format. So this is going to be a number that goes in here, but it's going to give us a string back, and the number is going to be num items times 2 for $2. And I'm also going to, at the very end, add a period. Okay, so now I've got the first case set up here, where if the number of items is less than 100, I'm going to build out that results string, and the last step is to update that results label. So the results label dot set text to result. Okay, and we're ready to continue. Else if, now this is the case if the number of items is less than 1,000, but it is more than it is 100 or more, then we've got some more stuff to do. What's it going to be? Well, it's very similar, so let's copy our code. The cost per item is going to drop a little bit. Let's make it $1.75. The total cost is, now the other place we have to change is right there, the actual calculation itself. Number of items times 1.75, put a period at the end, and that's all done. And we'll do one more. Let's say if the number of items goes from 1,000 up to 5,000, the cost per item is let's say $1.60. Then the cost will be, I'll just multiply by 1.6, and we're almost done. I'm going to do one more block, but I'm going to change this. This is not an if, this is just an else. Otherwise, else, that means that effectively num items is greater than or equal to 5,000. The cost per item, let's say, drops to $1.50, and the total cost is there. And now that stuff only executes, only one of those blocks will execute depending on what the value of num items is, and it only executes if this number format exception is not thrown. If the number format exception is thrown, we set this text right here, and that's the end of the block. Alright, now I'm going to scroll back. I've got some issues up here I want to check. The assigned values never used. Okay, that's fine. And oh yes, that decimal format is not something that's normally available. I'm going to copy that, and we're going to go up here and we have to import it because it's from the java.text package decimal format. Alright, so that looks pretty good. And is that fine? Oh, sorry, I need the import statement. That's, oops. The import statement itself. Import java.text.decimal format. Okay, there we go. And those values aren't used. That's okay. Alright, let's try it out. Run our project. Again, because it's a GUI, we have to pick our main class. That's that one. And let's see how it looks. Alright, no errors. That's nice. Maybe expand that just a little bit. Let's put in a number of items. If there's one item, it should be $2. Great. If there are 10 items, it should be $20. Good. 99 items should still be $2, but 100 items should be, yeah, $1.75. Perfect. Our next breakpoint was it 1,000? 9.99 works, and 1,000, perfect, drops to $1.60. What if I put in a very large number? We're at the $1.50 range. What if I put in a negative number? It's less than 100 items because it's negative 10 items, and so it's $2, and the total cost is listed right there. So that's a case we haven't handled very well. So better programming would be to handle negative numbers in some way. Maybe I put in a number like 1.2 to see what happens. That's not a valid number of items. Notice I didn't get any nasty errors down here, which is what would have happened if we hadn't handled that case. And what if I put in a word? That's also not a valid number of items. But now going back, if I put in a valid number of items again, we're back in business. Okay, so thanks very much, and once again, ask any questions in the Unit 2 forum.